Hello and welcome to the deserts of Syria. This is the Siberian here with another battle replay. And look at these glorious Brits taking a knee on the sandy ground. This is a battle where I am commanding the Spanish on that flank, going up against Blake R commanding the British characteristically. This is a good back and forth battle. Ooh, look at that volley. Let's follow them. We're in slow-mo, that's why I can so easily trace them. And so as you can already tell, my strategy was fairly aggressive. I rushed forward provincial cavalry and horse artillery to take the ridge in the center of the Syrian ridge. But before we get too far, I want to make sure I run through army composition. This is actually the first time I'm seeing Blake R's forces all set up. So there's a couple of colonial line infantries on this flank, supported by a yeomanry and regiment of horse. Some solid line infantry protecting the artillery. Three more line infantry, so 6 line infantry, 2 light infantry, and a good deal of cavalry spread out to protect his horses. So without further ado, I'm going to just click it into play and we can get this battle underway. Now I expected Blake R to be on the defensive, as that's his usual tactic. He's usually more of a defensive player. But as we'll see, things change very quickly and swing back and forth. At one point I thought I had the advantage, then he had the advantage, then I had the advantage. And it goes back and forth like that for a while. This is a good one. Might also be a little bit lengthy, not too bad, but might be worth grabbing a drink or snacks or popping the popcorn, whatever you do. I got my coffee with me. So there we go. And we're off. I gotta say, I really like the sandy feel. Of course, you go right under it and it's water. It's a low water table. So we have the British light foot advancing on this flank. So far you can't see any of my forces. On the British left, light infantry is advancing into the woods with a regiment of horse and yeomanry to support. And now the British are shifting their lines, advancing in the center and on the right flank with a decent force here. This is not a force to be trifled with. And here comes my horse artillery. Now they appear and his artillery is able to get the first shot off, but he's set with anti-infantry weapons, so it really does very little. And I happened to get a couple of really good shots, even though I couldn't see this unit. It's just aiming for the mortar. I only got 2 infantry, and overall my artillery did not do well. This Spanish artillery let me down, as I couldn't take out hardly any mortar batteries. I noticed his cavalry was running forward. The British cavalry moving towards the artillery, and so I send my cavalry to support. A little bit of friendly fire there. Didn't even get a horse. Overall, I'd say horse artillery not worth it. And my troops break. Look at how quickly they break. Not good. Not good at all. The British fire a few shots. Even though I lost that engagement, it gave my troops time to get to the crest of the ridge, which was useful. So we'll look at the battle. He's got his colonial line infantry, although they're taking some artillery hits. regular line infantry. Getting a great volley up towards my artillery. More line infantry forming up. On this flank, I tried to charge... Oh, not yet. I hadn't spotted his light infantry, or I just now spotted it. And my guerrillas were moving forward, the Spanish guerrilla troops. Took a terrible blow right here. My men returned fire though. But look at that. Artillery hit right in the middle of their ranks. Now the British are going to have to fight an uphill battle. However, I placed these troops rather poorly. And look at this. This is a great move. Shifting kind of around, so I had to stretch these guys out, and they're very tired because I had to run them up there. Where his are only winded and active. Shifting his troops over. I have to commit some reserves to the high ground. On this flank, I didn't know these guys were here, and I was distracted by what was going on in the center. So I hadn't switched to attack them with the cavalry yet. Ooh, and canister shot. That once again, artillery not that accurate. Cutting small little gaps in the thick lines, but it could have been so much more devastating. However, with the volleys and the artillery fire, I was able to break 1, 2, and 3. So an initial British assault has been broken. The Spaniards hold the heights, but are taking heavy artillery fire from the mortars. And the Spanish cavalry charged into the forest. Didn't get a very good charge bonus because of the trees, but it was enough to break the light infantry. But on this flank, the British continue their aggressive push. Very uncharacteristic of Blakar, which caught me off guard. And I was not able to really form up in time. Look at how close they are. Gonna fire a volley maybe? I don't know who will get it off first, but whoever does. Oh, they can't handle the pressure. And the British lines break with a volley to their rear. That guy is the luckiest guy alive. Somehow nobody's hitting him. But this battle is far from over, as I have no idea this cav is here. I just didn't spot it. A massive cav engagement in the deserts. The Spanish cav is suffering heavy losses, and the regiments of horse and yeomanry chasing my guerrillas. Guerrillas don't have great morale. They break really quick. But if you don't run them down, they'll reform also really quick. So most of my guerrilla units break. A square of the Irish Brigade holds on, but it is surrounded by these horsemen. And while I was really focused on that flank, thinking, oh, I'll just hold this flank. But look at all the forces he's managed to shift over here. 1, 2, 3, 4 whole units against this one lonely one with its flank in the air and cavalry on that flank. It's a great shifting of forces away from my artillery. I'm moving forces to confront the cavalry, really focused on that flank. And the Spanish infantry are about to get a nasty surprise. As here come the British yeomanry, fresh. Spaniards are already wavering and get charged on the flank and break. I was sending reinforcements even over, but I wasn't paying attention, and they break. And the next line breaks. Just a beautiful maneuver. He's breaking my whole line, and I finally noticed and formed these guys into square. And I'm rushing over my last reserves. And now a slaughter commences as the British yeomanry cut down the Spanish line as they flee. Trying desperately to get to the safety of the square, which some of them do, but not nearly enough. Meanwhile, I thought I could get a sneaky cav charge in. And here is my colonial light cav. They're exhausted, but I thought, oh, it's cav versus artillery. Of course I could win that. The cav is winning slightly. But they're also wavering, and then they break. So my cav was defeated by the mortar crews, which is very unfortunate. And now these guys about face to fire on any future units. There's a cav charge up the hill. Ooh, canister shot into the cavalry, but they're undeterred. Well, they're a little deterred, but not too bad. Ooh, another shot. They're back to wavering. Wavering. And they break. Unable to quite take the hill. But they did break my square. And so now the Spanish troops are in desperate straits. The British have taken the flank of the hill. The Syrian Ridge, as it's called. With lots of Spanish units shattered. Rushing guerrillas over to support. Pulling back my line infantry. Oh, these guys were targeting a horse unit, and so they chased it right into the enemy, which was very unfortunate. My artillery breaks from his artillery and the units breaking around them, and now the Spaniards have been driven off the ridge, and the British march to take it. Look at all these Spanish corpses. Bloody. There's like 3 horses for all that carnage that they caused. There's a few more here, but the Spanish have been driven off the ridge with heavy losses. Now are in full retreat mode. I have my general trying to rally the troops to reform some sort of defense. The Spanish cavalry has a decent force. The infantry is fleeing for its lives for the most part. However, elements begin to recover, and These Irishmen are unwilling to completely give up the ridge. And some brave cannoneers charging forward. Oh, and they're like, nah, I don't think we're going for that. Those ones are broken. Irishmen forming up. I like their stashes. Well, some of them, like that guy. Now the guerrillas begin to earn their keep, sniping at the enemy. Dropping a few Brits there. Let's go ahead and look at the general layout. So the British are advancing their lines right here and here. The Spanish are trying to reform some defensive lines back here with cavalry on the wings, and not quite willing to give up this ridge completely. However, these units are now prime targets for artillery. The artillery, though, is still targeting this one guy. Oh, and there he died. Got shot. These colonial line infantry, oh, that poor man got shot in the belly. Oof. This colonial line are holding their own, but between the accuracy of the guerrillas and the discipline of the Irish Brigade, they are not going to be successful in a shootout here. But there's still the advantage of artillery. Still on solid shot because it switches back to solid shot once your troops have been attacked. Oh, and I sent another cavalry charge in to try and take out the mortar, but he about faces and fires a volley into the troops, and oh, shatters my cavalry. Look at all the cavalry I spent trying to take out those mortars, and aren't even able to do hardly anything. This one's down to 3, but these units break, but they reform. So the Spanish lines reform on the far side of the ridge. The British colonial infantry are taking on the Irish Brigade and the guerrillas to cover for the British lines resting and forming up. So there's a bit of a lull in the battle. At least primarily. There's still a little bit of action on this flank, as now the Irish Brigade are getting hit by artillery, and unwilling to take it, they retire from the ridge. The guerrillas, however, hold their ground. And the guerrillas are definitely a skirmishing unit. You don't even have to really hit them in combat with a charge to make them rout. They'll charge, or they'll rout before you get there most of the times. And but they are very good at skirmishing. You get a lot of their units firing at once. They're a little more accurate, have a little bit more range. And now I have 3 units skirmishing, and the British are having enough of that. They're advancing to fire upon these guerrillas. We're picking away at these British lines. We'll watch a volley. There's a good distant volley. A good near volley. Very nice. And the guerrillas fall back to a safer distance. Looks like they didn't lose that many, if any. Oh, there's one. Buried in sand already. Where'd he go? There he is. Already buried in the sand. Let's see. Oh. There he is. The poor man. Alright. Now the Irish Brigade reformed, but I am pulling them back to support the main lines of infantry. Also, the Spanish have noticed that the British right flank is its strength and are shifting forces that direction. Now that the battlefield is stabilized once again, with the Spanish almost completely driven off the ridge. However, the colonial infantry, having suffered nearly a third, 30% casualties, and are exhausted from a long, hot day of combat, have decided to run for the rear. These ones getting shot in the flank and in a similar situation also retire, leaving the British flank slightly open. And the guerrillas decide to take advantage. The guerrillas are taking some fire. However, they're so spread out that explosive shot isn't as effective. My general is also being targeted, and I have to keep withdrawing him to prevent him from dying, because if he dies, my troops are pretty much guaranteed to rout. Now the British, what I didn't know was that Blakar had kept 3 whole fresh units, not completely fresh. They had taken that initial charge and got some canister and some shots when I was trying to take out his mortars with my artillery. But those units are rested, impetuous, really a dangerous force to be reckoned with still. In reserve. And the Spanish were now thinking, there's a chance that we have a local superiority. So there's 270, 230, 270. Whereas the Spanish have 240, 280, 250, 280, 250. And guerrilla units. That's a pretty decent Spanish numerical superiority, and a regiment of horse that's fresh, and this provincial cav, which isn't fresh, but is still cav. So I, as the Spanish general, was thinking maybe I can isolate this unit, destroy it, and then march on whatever is guarding his artillery, because I figured he had something. Now the guerrillas are forming up to snipe at the enemy, just like these ones over here. At max range, they're not going to get all that many hits, but every hit is a soldier I don't have to fight conventionally, which is useful. My general is now far enough back that his mortars can't reach it, so they're falling short. Let's see. Now there's a bit of a pause as we both are considering our options here. The guerrillas strayed too close, and I decided to pull them back to where only they can fire on the enemy. He does have this regiment of horse, 48 cav, still in reserve. It's fresh now, and these guerrillas are very vulnerable to that. And I spotted that, which is why the Spanish provincial cavalry is moving over. You can't see it anymore, but I moved it from this flank to this flank as a protection. Watch some Spanish pot shots get taken. Oh, and here we have the action where the British line charges to break my guerrillas, who broke before they even reached them. But the Spanish line was able to see off this infantry, who I think plugged bayonets, although I'm not sure. That might be a later time. And the guerrillas reform. Here's a mistake, probably my biggest mistake of the match. I could have run down these troops while they're broken, but I allow them to fall back and reform. That's a huge mistake on my part, and I pay for it dearly. But here comes the British charge in a long column formation, interestingly enough, running into the artillery piece and pushing it back. And the guerrillas break quickly, but now some provincial cav is charging up the hill to protect them. My provincial cav have the number advantage, while the regiment of horse have a health and energy advantage, but that artillery thing I think killed the friendly, and that was enough to see off his cav. However, mine also broke. So both armies withdraw from that encounter, now having lost the ridge. And now the Spanish begin their move, attempting to assault the British positions. There is this British regiment of yeomanry, which I had no idea existed, even though my cav are right here. They're hidden in the forest, and I did not spot them. That was a good little hiding spot. And the Spanish guerrillas are once again taking the high ground. Since we last checked on these guerrillas, they've killed 3 British. Not great, but not terrible. Now these guerrillas are taking their pot shots at the enemy. But the Spanish are about to stray into musket range of the British line. Beautiful volley. Spanish are advancing. Returning fire there. And here we go with the cav moving on the flank. Still didn't know this was here. Wasn't paying close attention on that flank. Some British light infantry reformed and sought to take on the guerrillas, who also give them a volley. And this unit had plugged bayonets, which is why it's not firing, I'm pretty sure. Look at that, 2 cav just right next to each other, and I didn't realize it was there still. Light infantry has now taken losses from the guerrillas on the ridge and must fall back. We did get a few guerrillas, but not enough. The Irish are taking the ridge once more. Oh, and the Cav battle was engaged. The Yeomanry initially got a good charge, but had already lost numbers. These guys were fresh and are a superior type of Cav, and so they had to withdraw. And now the line battle is in full swing. I had both these 3 units all focused on that line infantry, hoping that I could wear it down. Meanwhile, get a rear charge with my cavalry on this one. And here comes the cavalry into the British. I almost succeeded in breaking this British unit, but they formed square and I was forced to withdraw my cavalry. As once they form the square successfully, my cav gets a huge disadvantage. And then he immediately goes into a charge of my guerrillas, who break before even making contact with the enemy. In order to save them, I have this unit target and charge the cav in once again. He again forms a square. Fairly quickly, I again withdraw my cav. My cav, the cowards they are, break. And now he's able to charge this unit on the flank. It's a great maneuvering here. I tried to countercharge. And though I have a huge superiority in numbers, his troops are winded, mine are exhausted. My troops break and are massacred en masse. And now, I thought for sure I had that in the bag. But now the British are able to sweep down the flank. I try to withdraw my troops to form a firing line. This one British unit, less than 200 soldiers, is breaking my entire army. My cav did reform. However, look at this massacre. Sent my cav in, hoping to get a good charge, but once again, wisely forms a square. However, this time I was having none of it. I was gonna put an end to this unit. I charge my Spanish line. It's only winded. These guys are tired. Into the British line, and then charge my cavalry into the rear. This British line, down to 168, is still holding off the Spanish infantry. Incredible. And now my regiment of horse is taking losses. He sends in another unit of 193. And I charge them instead, but my cav just break. And as if on cue, my line infantry, still with 200 plus soldiers, breaks. And the break causes a chain rout. Meanwhile, I did send forward some guerrillas who managed to take out this line infantry unit, which had been sent to reinforce, I believe. But this is where the main action is happening. Now I have this unit broken, this unit broken. My general is trying desperately to rally any troops he can. And look at this. The British just casually taking the fire. Spanish troops hardly getting any kills. I guess they're aiming at this unit. Spaniards are steady with 260, 120, and 180. The British do have a bit of a superiority in numbers. They are lower on morale because they are smaller units, and that one breaks, meaning our flank the attack on the flank isn't quite as bad. These units are winning in the melee. Oh, mine are, sorry. The Spanish are. And in the last desperate attempt, hold off the enemy. Where's the Spanish general? He's back here trying to rally this line infantry, who will not be rallied. Now this infantry is advancing forward, and the Spanish general is going in for a charge against these British. My guerrillas are falling back. These guerrillas were sent off by some line infantry. And the general barely manages to break this line infantry, who shatter. And now the Spanish are confronting a solitary British line. Still 213, but 228, 233, and these ones have plugged bayonets, but 186. The Spanish with a clear local advantage in numbers, and I was thinking at this time, alright, we got this. We've got this unit cut off and surrounded. I was sending my guerrillas to delay this line infantry. I didn't know about this one yet. And this one also reformed. I had no idea about that. But I thought, oh, I've got it. I've got it in the bag. I'll just fire this one down until it breaks. Wisely, he runs his troops into the forest to get that extra bonus of cover. I do get a volley off in the back. This makes the British troops shaken. But from the cover of the trees, they're putting a good fire on the Irishmen. My guerrillas are exhausted, so they cannot move up very quickly to confront this line infantry that's advancing. And these guys are just holding on, hoping for rescue from their allies. And indeed, rescue is coming in the form of this nearly fresh unit. I mean, it's very tired, but it's only lost 3 troops in total. Even though these guys are steady, they are taking more losses than they're giving on these guys, and they are taking artillery fire. And as they hear the British line infantry approaching, they begin to get nervous. Thought maybe I could get a rear charge with these bayonet armed line infantry, but it does not work out. The guerrillas are trying to get to the summit. They can fire on the British, and now the Irish Brigade is the one surrounded. The tables have turned. Good volley there. My charging troops, and I decide, no, that's not a good idea. And the Irish have broken. And that sets the guerrillas to wavering. Will they get a volley off? Looks like they will. They get a couple shots off before breaking. And now the tables have turned once again. With these units breaking, the Spanish are now at a disadvantage. Having a line infantry with muskets still and a line infantry with bayonets only. I'm running the Spanish general over to hopefully rally these guys. But the situation has reversed once more. As the British line infantry has been very solid throughout this whole match. They took some losses, but look at this initial Spanish massacre. Damaged my units so heavily I was never able to fully recover. And the British morale stayed high throughout the battle. These Irishmen are having a bit of a pathfinding issue. I'm trying to withdraw my troops out of mortar range. My general is taking some fire. Quite heavy British losses back here, mixed in with the Spanish dead. That's a heavy Spanish loss. Oof. And there's that unit that got massacred by the British line. My cavalry was unable to break the enemy at any point, whereas his cavalry caused a massive chain rout. Now this unit is resting on the ridge. We'll go ahead and... oh, I guess we're back to the action. This unit, I didn't look at the terrain carefully enough, and they're just firing into this little hill for the most part. And I thought maybe I can get a flanking charge. He's expecting me to just keep retreating. I noticed that they were just hitting the hill. I had them hold fire. I move up, hopefully to get to the top of the hill. They're nervous, however, and a British volley, weak though it is, sends them scurrying for the rear. And now I believe my general is the only unit still holding its own. And so, thinking it's the end of the match, I send him forward. Maybe I can rally some, and it does work. I rally the Irish. And now they're getting sandwiched by these guys. And so I send my general over to rally those guys. We'll leave this and fast forward as a British victory is pretty much guaranteed at this point. My troops' morale is just too low, already wavering. And with a single volley that only kills 2 guys, the Irish fall back. However, I do reform this unit, desperately cobbling together a defense. And my general is being targeted by his mortars. And I am getting some good kills while his line is forming up. But my general breaks from a disastrous hit from a couple mortars. Look at that. Speedy. And I figured these are my last guys. I'm gonna charge them forward. Boom. Look at that. Brutal. And that gets my men immediately routing. But my general had reformed, so I charged him forward. To no effect. as he gets gunned down by mortars. Oof. And there they go. My general did survive the battle though, impressively enough. So, look at this. I deployed, oh sorry, this is actually me, I was the Spanish. I deployed 200 more troops, exactly. I lost 100 more troops. We actually killed about exactly the same, but my troops were breaking left and right. So despite the closeness, it's a clear British victory. Mortars got some good kills, but really they routed a lot of troops. His line infantry overall did decent. This one didn't do so well, as it lost a lot of troops. This one killed a lot, but also lost a lot. The British horsemen got quite a few kills. Not as many as I expected. This one got the most, okay. And colonial infantry did decent. Light infantry, not as well as they probably could have. So overall, the Spanish held their own, but were soundly driven from the field by the British. Thank you, Blake R, for playing and for sending in the replay. We'll have to have a rematch sometime again. This was quite fun. But without further ado, I will leave you guys with another cinematic outro. Bye.